Well, it's great to be here. Thank you, Wyoming State Trapping Convention, for having me. It's another great year, and I'm pleased to be here. I see some familiar faces and some not so familiar faces, so I'm glad for all of you that are here that have not had a chance to attend one of my demonstrations. Hopefully, just hopefully, some of you can take something away from this and you can learn something from this. I go about things a little bit different. You can watch a lot of coyote calling demonstrations, and everybody's got their own piece that they're going to say. They're going to say, make this sound, and this is what I do. I try to go at it a little different way in the sense of way my mind works and how I got to where I am today. And I like to try to pass on that knowledge because I know I have younger people in the crowd that they're unsure of where they want to go when they get big and get older, and I want to try to instill some kind of knowledge or some kind of teaching to them so that they can further their life in something like what I'm doing. I was a farm kid, born and raised in south central Nebraska. Grew up in a very close-knit farm family. I hunted, fished, trapped. That's what I did. My mother at times would tell us, me and my brother, she would say, you kids, you hunt too much, you fish too much, you've got to do other things. We worked very hard on the farm, but it was, our passion was the outdoors. Our passion was trapping, hunting, figuring animals out. So I pushed myself when I was young because I love the outdoors, and even traveling through Nebraska to get to Lusk 2 days ago, I'm just in awe because as I travel through Nebraska, that's where I really started calling coyotes a lot, was in the sandhills of Nebraska. And I get asked from people, where's your favorite place in the world to call coyotes? Because I've been very fortunate. I've called coyotes all over the western United States, in Canada, Missouri, Indiana. I've been very, very blessed in what my eyes have seen, and my favorite place is probably the sandhills of Nebraska, and it's only because that was my first upbringing and introduction to really, really good predator calling. And it instilled that into my mind that the coyotes were beautiful, big, white, fluffy coyotes back in the day, and I got to visit with ranchers that had been on ranches for 2, 3, 4 generations. So that was a big part of what I did growing up. And I don't know if many of you know what an introvert is or an extrovert. An extrovert tends to be a person that's a little more outgoing. They can speak to anybody. They're not really shy. They can go right out and talk to somebody. I'm kind of like that now. I can walk up to anybody and talk, but I'm an introvert. So what that means is, growing up, I was always by myself. I love my quiet time. I love my peace and quiet. I love to go do things by myself. So in the coyote calling realm, back when I was starting and getting into it, there was no internet. There was really nothing you could watch on calling predators. I learned by going out and doing it. I get emails all the time from people, and so many people nowadays, they get hinged and stuck on one problem in calling predators, and that problem is very, very dramatic to them. But for me, the way I overcame things is I just went out and did it and tried something else. I remember when I was really new at calling predators, and there was nothing to show you how to call coyotes with a hand call. I blew on a saxophone, and I was in high school band all the way through, so I understand how a reed works and how the mouthpiece and the reed, you pinch the reed down and you have to make sound. I could make sound, but I was having trouble calling coyotes right off the bat. And I hear all these stories, and people are like, well, I went out my first time and I called in 3 coyotes. I went out and my 4th time ever and I called in 2 coyotes. Well, I wasn't one of those guys. You know, I'm that guy that I made 40, 50 stands going out trying to call coyotes, and finally calling in my first coyote. And I remember back, I always try to remember what I'm doing when I have success, so I can mark it down in my mind and try to understand what I'm doing and how I succeeded. And I remember when I called a coyote in, it came so fast, I was like, what the heck just happened? What was I doing? I can't remember. Okay, was I calling a long time, and then I paused for just a little bit? What was I doing? So nowadays, we can put everything on the internet. We can make YouTube videos. There's television shows. You can show people exactly how to become successful. I wasn't one of those guys that was just, it came to me. You know what I mean? I had to work my tail off. And when I lived in Wyoming, and the only reason I talk about this is because being an introvert, it's helped me in many, many ways to become successful, but it's also helped me to basically become more extroverted, where I can talk to people, where I can share my knowledge, where I can visit with children and try to pass something on. That's what's really important to me now. So my introverted self, when I lived in Wyoming, for instance, I went calling coyotes all the time by myself. I was a custom wheat harvester in the summer. Being a farm kid, we went into the bank when I was 16 years old, got a loan from the bank for $44,000 for my brother and I's first combine. And we bought a combine. Our dad let us use his combine. We went south to Guthrie, Oklahoma, and we started harvesting. And the way you start harvesting is you've got to go to farmers' yards, knock on their door, and say, hey, do you know anybody around the area that's needing some wheat harvested? So an introverted person like me, I had to learn to talk to people. I'm good at talking to people, especially getting permission and relating to people one-on-one. That's a lot of the questions I get to nowadays is, how do you get permission to call coyotes? You've got to be able to relate to that person that you're asking permission from. I have a degree in animal science from the University of Nebraska. I can talk cattle to people. I can talk livestock to people. I can talk agriculture to people because I've been in the farm community my whole life. So it's easy to me to say, how are your cattle doing this year? Did you lose any calves to predation this year? So basically, when I'd go on harvest and 16 years old, it forced me to do things in talking to people and relating to people. So after that, I moved to Wyoming after college, and I went hunting coyotes all by myself all the time. And I remember having a little old 1991 Nissan, and my friend in Wyoming, he's now 83 years old, he would tell me, he'd say, Les, where are you going? Because this was before cell phones. I think I had a flip phone, I can't remember, but I never used it because you never had service out in the Red Desert. He'd be like, where are you going today? Well, I think I'm going to run over to Medicine Bow, but I'm not sure. Because usually when I'd leave, I'd change my mind because I'd get somewhere and the wind's blowing a certain direction. I'm like, I need to go west instead of going east. So being an introvert, I love going and killing coyotes by myself, and that's what I did. And I'd get clear out in these wide expanses. I'd get stuck in the snowdrift, and I'd be 30 miles from the interstate, and there's no houses, and I was just in awe. I loved it. But when I'd get back, he'd chew me out. My friend Norm would chew me out. He'd be like, you can't do these things, but the settlers did back in the day, so just trying to make it a little more bearable. But the thing is, if any of you kids that are listening to me today, I was that guy that was very, very shy. I did not excel in school. I excelled in sports, but I excelled in a sport that I had my own reign, and that was wrestling. I was very good at it because I could channel all my energy in what I love to do, and I can do things. When people tell me I can't do it, then I can prove you wrong because I can really go hard. I can give it 110%. But for kids that are out there trying to figure out what they want to do in life, Nobody handed me nothing and said, you're going to succeed at this. Come back and run the family farm. Do this. I went after things on my own because I'm a go-getter. And just like the show Predator Quest and my product line, all of that, I was told hundreds of times I would never make it in the Predator industry. It's too small. There's no way you can have a show. Nobody will watch it. I remember guys coming up to me trying to pick fights with me, and when I was at shows, they'd say, nobody watches your show. Nobody wants to see a coyote get killed. Nobody thinks that's neat. They said that to me over and over and over again. And you've got to overcome huge obstacles in your life to ever become successful in what you feel is success. For me, success is standing right here talking to you, because I had to overcome a huge barrier in my life to be able to talk to people. Because I'm so introverted, I'm that guy when I go to a restaurant, I sit in the back corner with my back to the wall because I want to watch everybody that walks through the front door, because I want to have eye contact with all those people. Just like coyotes, I want to learn that animal by staring him in the eye. And so many people, they ask me, how can I become a good predator caller, Les? I tell them, learn to shotgun coyotes. What do you mean? Call them in so close that you can watch their eyeballs. You can see where they're looking. You can look that coyote right in the eye, and you know what he's thinking. When you outsmart a coyote, when he's that close to you, you've done something. The reason you've done something is because you found out your camouflage works, you found out your calling worked, you found out your movement worked, you were hidden, you weren't moving, you were calm, you were patient, and you waited for the right moment. And that is so important in predator calling. Now, another thing I want to talk about is my calling. Because having all these people tell you that you're never going to succeed in something, and, you know, it can weigh on your brain, okay? It can weigh on your thoughts. It can weigh on everything you do. But if you overcome that with confidence, and I'm a very confident person, I know what I can do, but just knowing that your sound is working. I tell people, I'll take that back. People have told me that you don't use that sound when you're out in the field. Well, what do you mean? Like the way I call my coyotes. You don't use that sound. Yes, I do. I use that sound everywhere I go. It's the same sound. Well, it doesn't sound that good. As people, we all think that our ears have got to hear the perfect sound. What sounds good to us is not necessarily what sounds good to a coyote, okay? A lot of people don't understand that. So many people think that, man, that guy, he sounds so perfect. That sounds like a rabbit. He just sounds so perfect. But he may have trouble calling coyotes. Coyotes want to hear what they want to hear. And being a saxophone player when I was in high school, I was in the choir. I tune my own calls. I cut my own reeds. I've sanded reeds. I blow on them a little bit and see if they sound right. I don't know what I'm listening for, but when I hear it, my ears tell me that's the pitch, that's the sound. So everywhere I went, from North Dakota down to Texas, all the way to California, there's only 2 states I haven't killed a coyote in. I haven't killed a coyote in California, and I haven't killed a coyote in Washington. I drove to California one time to give a predator calling demonstration at the Orange County Predator Callers Association in Orange County. We stopped at one spot, and they wanted to see if I could call a coyote. I called in a coyote. He stood there at about 70 yards. And another thing, if you want to learn something about coyotes, if you want to learn, and I'm talking learn, call coyotes in and don't shoot them. Call them in, stay hidden, and just mess with that coyote and see how long he stays out around you. See how many opportunities he gives you to shoot him. So many people want to jump right up and shoot the coyote as soon as they see him. Calm down. Let that coyote search for you. Let him look for you. Let him try to go downwind. See how long he sticks around. But back to my story. California, I've called in a coyote. I didn't shoot him because I never brought a rifle with me. So all the western states pretty much, Washington would be no different than Oregon or Idaho, Missouri. I've called just a little bit on the east. The reason I don't go east is because filming, I don't care to go east and hunt small parcels. I like big expanses. I'm a western guy. I love big expanses of land. I love public land. I love trying to figure out coyotes. That's my goal, trying to see where they're at, locate them. I don't necessarily how. I always hunt like a coyote's there. So all the kids that are here, I want you to think about what I'm saying. No matter who tries to ever derail you in life, whoever talks bad about you. I was a kid that was bullied, but it wasn't until I got out of school that I went to all of my bulliers, and I approached them one by one, and then they're cowards. They can't face you. So that tells you about herd mentality. People got to gang up on you because they're scared to be by themselves. I'm a loner anyway, so I love being by myself. I love to figure out animals. I love to get inside the brain of a coyote and figure them out. Another way that I've excelled is I've taken on whitetail deer hunting, archery. I love bow hunting whitetail deer. Now you might ask why, Les? Why? Coyotes have taught me so much about animal behavior. If you can outsmart a coyote and you can shotgun them, call them in and shotgun them, you can outsmart any whitetail. That's just the truth of the matter. But we all have a different mentality. And what I want you to all understand is just because you think you're doing something right, try to think outside the box and try something else. Try to listen what I'm saying and don't believe your own way. If you're having trouble with something, try to figure out where you're going wrong. I had a guy email me a while back. Well, there's been two guys, and it just sticks out in my head because I had no way to learn. I want you to understand there was no internet. There was hardly books you could read. Major Boddicker was writing a few books, but I read books, but I was a guy that went out and put my hands on something. That's how I learn. That's how I do it. I have people nowadays that say, Les, I used to call in a lot of coyotes. They would run me over. Now, they're hitting the brakes at 200 and 300 instantly. See, nobody taught me this stuff. I had to learn it. So this kid's asking me. He has the opportunity to ask me what he's doing wrong. I want you to go out and learn what you're doing wrong yourself so you understand it. And he said, do you know what I'm doing wrong? And I said, absolutely, I know what you're doing wrong. The coyote's seeing you. Well, I'm not doing anything different. Are you using an e-collar? Well, I do sometimes. You're playing your e-call too loud, number one. That volume hits that coyote, it gets too loud. He's got to stop. And you spook them. They want to leave. Number two, I said, what kind of camo are you wearing? Well, I'm wearing this brand new camo that's really cool looking. I said, I don't care how cool it looks to the human's eyes, coyotes can pick it up, okay? Some of the best camo on the planet was old Carhartt coveralls, the best, because they're dull. They have nothing else in them. No coloring. The newest camos spook coyotes, I'm telling you, some of the new stuff. Another kid, he asked me, down in Texas, Les, I used to call coyotes all the time. I shotgun them. I haven't shotgunned a coyote in so long. What am I doing wrong? Another one, ding, ding, ding. The whole world wants to use e-calls. Why? Because it's easy. We all want easy, okay? Even I want easy sometimes. I want to be able to sit back when that wind's blowing 40 miles an hour, just hit play. That's what I want to do sometimes. But you want to be the best predator caller in the world, learn how to hand call. And I'm not just saying that. It's the God's honest truth. If you can't hand call, I'm going to tell you, you're probably never, ever going to be to the level that you could be if you were a hand caller. Some of the very first coyotes I called in my lifetime was with my hand. Never cost me no money. It's just learning how to do something different. Not everybody's doing it. The downfall with calling with my hand, it's not very loud. And your lip has to get in shape. Just like when you start blowing a saxophone or a trumpet or a trombone when you're in band class, your lip feels like, the old saying is, you've got trombone lip. And the reason you get trombone lip is because you're blowing and your body's not used to it. Your muscles are out of shape. So basically your body wants to give out, but the more you do it, your body gets in shape. Then all of a sudden you don't have trombone lip anymore, and you can call and call and call. That's the same thing with calling with my hand. But I've called in so many bobcats, so many coyotes, and the key is they've just got to hear it. Once they hear it, I can call them in. Now, I don't know what, it don't sound like a cottontail to me. Of course, I've heard a couple cottontails. I've heard jackrabbits make their sounds. It doesn't sound like it, but I can tell you that is a bobcat calling sound that I've never ever heard. I've called more bobcats with that sound, but the key is getting that volume out there. I have to get close to where I think they are. That's how I've succeeded with that sound. If there's a coyote out in this vast expanse, I would start calling right here, but it would be first thing in the morning when the wind's down and just try to call as loud as I could. And I'd sit there for 20 minutes. Now, I'd see a coyote coming in this wide open expanse right here. And if I did, I knew that thing was coming to my sound. But if I didn't get one here, I'd go over to that corner of that fence, go over that little rise over there, and that's where I'd go call by those telephone poles over there. I'd go that far with just my hand because they're going to hear it. If they hear it, you're going to see him. You're going to see his face. You're going to see his chest shining somewhere. You're going to see him leaving. So a simple sound like that, just my hand. I encourage everybody to try something like that. Get out there and try a sound that you're not used to using. The whole thing with the success of Les Johnson and what kind of person I am, like I said, people have told me, you can't do it, you can't do it, there's no way you're going to do it, you're terrible, you're never going to succeed, you're going to fail. That's all I've ever heard in this realm, not you guys, but my competition. Everybody else that was on the other side of the fence from me, where I was in competition with, they told me I was going to fail. How do you overcome that? You work harder. I work harder. I spent so many nights in my office till 1 and 2 in the morning. Les, what are you doing? Well, I'm working. What do you mean? You're coyote caller. What is there to do? Networking. There's coming out with designs on calls, talking to bankers. I buy land. I've made more money in land than I ever have anything in my life. I'm a farm kid, so I see an opportunity and I take it because there's only so much land. It's a rare, rare, rare commodity. And if it produces something, it's giving me something back. If it can give me cash rent, if it can produce a crop, that's what I do. I see an opportunity, I take it. Les Johnson needed something to sell because if I'm going to try to promote predator calling, I've got to give something to the people that want to learn. So I designed predator calls, and I couldn't have done it without high school friends. It went clear back to high school friends is how I learned how to do calls. A high school class, he was 3 years younger than me, Kirby Taylor. He helped me design my calls. He never wanted anything because that small town mentality. People help people. Nowadays, you go anywhere, it's $250 an hour, $300 an hour just to tell your idea to somebody, and then they steal it. So this right here is a rapid prototype. He helped me do it. You got to make a computer animated design, a CAD design, send it off to a company in a file. They use a machine like a giant printer. zzz, 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 and it makes this call just out of really, really thin plastic. This was a prototype, cost me 250 bucks. Surprised I haven't lost it off of this lanyard. I've called more coyotes with this call than so many calls in my life. Sound? I don't think it sounds that good, but like I said, it's not what appeases our ears, it's what appeases a coyote's ears. Everybody wants that perfect sound. I'm telling you, perfect sound does not mean you're going to be a good coyote caller, okay? I'll go through some of my sounds. I want you guys to hear, and I want you to understand what I do. How are we doing on time?
You got a half hour yet.
Half hour, okay. Because I want to give the kids something too. Hopefully, I want all the kids to be able to keep their parents up late at night, you know, make them mad, all that stuff. Sorry, but it's the truth. Maybe I better tell a few more stories first, but things that really stick out in my mind is my ability over the years to be able to pick a stand. Now, when I say pick a stand, I want to go in, set up, and I want to call coyotes from a location, and that is called a stand, where I go set up to call a coyote. My ability in saying, I think there's a coyote over there. We can look all this country over, and I could say, there's a house over there, see a big hill past the house, clear over there to the left. I want to go call off of that house, that hill, clear over there on the back side of that hill, over towards them, that tree range over there. Why? Because I love calling near ranches, number one. There's always a coyote or two or four near a ranch. They like hearing activity. They like hearing the vehicles. They like hearing the chickens. They like hearing the cows. So I can pick a stand. Now, am I right all the time? Absolutely not. I've actually went places, called coyotes. I've tried calling, and I've made 10, 12 stands, never called a coyote. My rule from competition calling days was if I made four stands and I didn't call a coyote, I changed something up. I drive 5 miles this way, 4 miles that way. Instead of calling really rough country, I just go out in the wide open, flattest stuff on the planet, try to belly crawl out there and make a stand, see if there's a coyote out there. I change things up, and the reason I change things up is because you're never going to know what you're doing wrong if you don't change a little bit. I can go out all day and say, okay, I made 27 stands today. I just hit it as hard as I could all day long and never called a coyote. What did I learn? Well, the coyotes weren't where I was at. Why didn't I try something different? Okay, I tried creek bottoms. I tried wide open stuff. I tried ridges. There's got to be somewhere those coyotes are, and typically, if you're going to be out there all day long, there's going to be a coyote that takes a look at you. There's always going to be a coyote that can't resist peeking over a hill looking at you, okay? And once you see a coyote, then you know you're kind of hanging out where they're at. So keep that in mind. My focus in my life was kind of a run and gunner. I love to hit country and move through it, but I like to systematically pick the coyotes off. I don't like to go blazing into a spot, call, and I had 3 different coyotes come from 3 different directions. I don't like to be that guy. That's too much for me. I like to be the guy that here's a bunch howl there, bunch howl there, bunch howl there, and I like to back out, go clear out around and pick one off over there, come back over here, pick one off over here, go back around, pick one off over there. I don't like to go blazing saddles right in the middle of them and spook them all. That's happened on instances, but I always relate to this one story, and if you can think about what has happened in this story, you understand and you get a sense of how we've all been wrong at times in calling coyotes. It was 2006. It was the National Coyote Calling Championship. I was hunting with a guy I'd only hunted with this guy one other time in my life. He was a veteran. He was 12 to 14 years older than me, And here I am, about 40 years old, and he's in his 50s, and we're going on a national coyote calling competition. I want to be the guy that respects my elders. I've always been that way because I feel like somebody older than me's got way more knowledge than me. I don't like to be that guy that says, hey, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this. I went out and did my own scouting. I didn't even take him with me. I wanted to go look an area over out in the desert. I'd hunted elk sheds out there. I'd always seen a lot of coyotes. Not a lot. I'm talking 1 or 2 coyotes a day. But when you're on a four-wheeler looking for elk sheds, and if you kick up 1 or 2 coyotes, you can probably assume, safe to assume, that there was 8 or 10 more coyotes that you never saw, you know, at least. So I went out to the desert. I seen the stuff that I wanted to see. I saw a few coyotes as I was driving around. I was mentally marking stands. Okay, predominant wind's a southwest wind, usually in the desert, but occasionally you can get a northwest wind on a storm, in front of a storm. So pretty much everything you do is southwest wind oriented. I'm thinking that. I scouted, we were headed out. The night before the competition, I asked Robin, I said, Robin, where would you like to hunt in this event? He said, Les, I'm hunting with you. I prefer you drive, you do everything. We go where you want to go. I said, thank you. He said, where are we going? I said, we're going to the desert. And the next morning, we went out, and this is the part I want all of you to learn something from, because it teaches you a little bit about your own self, to force yourself to back out of a situation that most of us would want to go face first right in. We pulled to an area. I've never called this spot in my life, but I'd always seen it whenever I was hunting elk sheds, and I'd be like, man, I love this spot, right? This whole area right here. So we go, we pull up there, the pickup, we're on an oil field road, there's a pump station right in front of us, we park, and it's pitch black. We just sat in the vehicle. I said, I got out and I tested the wind. The wind was just kind of swirling a little bit. But actually, I was going to go with the wind and set up for first stand of the morning just to see if I could get a coyote to come in. I go, we sat in the vehicle a little bit longer. You could start to see a hint of lightness over in the east. I said, let's go set up. But I said, Robin, I'm going to have you go about 150 yards downwind of me. We're going to probably sit on a little sand dune ridge. And I said, I want you just to go off, get set up, and you watch the downwind. He said, I'm totally cool with that. So we go out there, we get set up, I sit down, and it's just so peaceful, but the wind's just swirling. Sometimes hitting me on the back of the neck. Next second, it's blowing in my face. Perfect. I'm not worried about a wind like that. So I sat there for probably at least 15 minutes longer, and I have the shotgun. You guys know me. I love my shotgun. I have it sitting on my lap. I have my rifle right beside me. And finally, I'm like, I could see about 100 yards. And I'm thinking, if one was ripping in, I'd probably have a little trouble seeing him, but I could still shotgun him. So I'm going to make one series and just see what's going on. First stand of the morning, I don't call a long time. I just, wah, 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 and I shut up. I just want to catch their attention. And I'm a little bit loud, and then I quiet right down. And I sat there. Nothing. And you know, your ears are hearing something, your hair's twitching a little bit, and you're thinking one's running in behind me. You know, you're getting all that stuff going through your head. So I wait about 1 minute, and I called again, but just a little bit again, and I shut up. And as soon as I shut up, about 1 minute later, and it's getting light enough, 400 yards in front of me, I had a big, bald sand dune right in front of me. Great big sand dune. And it's just, there's no vegetation on it. It's pure sand on the top of it. Right on the back side of that, a big old male. Ooh. Ooh. He barked. And I just sat there. He was calling his bitch. A little bit later, he howls, and right behind him, she howls. Now they're both together, right on the back side of that sand dune. He wanted to know where she was. He was telling her, get over here. Then I sat there for probably 3 more minutes. I never ever called again. And that sand dune is 400 yards. I know he's right. He's just over the crest of it. He don't even want to show his face. Then all of a sudden, the whole country just starts erupting with coyote howls everywhere. I had them behind me. I was marking coyotes, okay? There's one right behind me about a mile. There's 2 more behind that one about a mile and a half. I've got one over here to the east, lone coyote, a little pup. It was a high-pitched howl, little female. She's over here about a mile and a half to mile and 3/4, 2 miles. She's to my east. I had another male right in front of us, had those 2, had more beyond them, more there. I could hear coyotes as far as I could hear. So faint, I'd be like, is that coyotes? Yep, that is coyotes clear over there. I'm thinking 3 and 4 miles, I could hear coyotes. It was crazy. So this is the part that challenges any human being when you've got to make a decision, okay? What did Les Johnson do there? I got up, I walked down to my buddy, I sneak in through the sagebrush, and I'm trying to be as quiet as I could. I come down to Robin, he's set up looking downwind, and I actually scared the crap out of him because he was not expecting me to be walking towards him. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, we need to get out of here now. And he said, but let's go kill those 2 coyotes. I said, let's go back to the vehicle right now. So we went back to the vehicle, and we got in the vehicle, and it was a little heated at first, okay? At that time, I'd won the national 4 times. He'd never won it. He'd placed in the top 10 once or twice. We're both very competitive people. We both have a lot of knowledge on calling coyotes. His style of calling was, let's go kill those 2 coyotes. My style of calling is, let's get the heck out of here, go kill that single down there, then come back and start picking all of these off because now they told me kind of where they're at. So that's what we were doing. So I'm driving down the road, this gravel road going east, because I want to go kill that single little pup down there because she was all by herself. And I explained to him, I said, Robin, we could kill those 2 coyotes, but we're going to mess this whole country up. We're in a competition to kill coyotes. We're not in a competition to kill 2 coyotes and get skunked the rest of the day. So the moral of the story is, you can go to the best spot. You can hear 5 coyotes howling out there and go right in the middle of them and make one stand and screw up 5 coyotes and not even kill a coyote. Or you can back out, go down the road, go down there, walk in a half mile and kill that one, clear over on the west side, back out of there, come back, go around, come around the other side and kill that coyote over there. Sure, it takes time. When you're in a competition, everything takes time. The ticker is moving. But you can make 3, 4 stands, never kill a coyote, never see a coyote. I figure if I know where a coyote's at and I can try to get him killed, that's money in the bank. I can at least get 1 coyote. That's my goal. And I may call in a double, may call in a triple. So the moral of all that is to test your own ability to know when to say when and do something out of the ordinary. Trust me, that kind of stuff's hard, but my own mentality told me, do not stay here. You're messing up 20 coyotes. That day we killed 9 coyotes. The wind picked up. The wind started blowing about 30 miles an hour. And when it started blowing that hard, that's when I went right back to where we were. And I went a little bit further because I heard a male howl just past. There was the 2 howling in front, but there was another male about a 3/4 of a mile downwind of us. So I snuck in and we shotgunned that coyote. That coyote come ripping in, a great big white one. But we killed him when the wind picked up. And then we started going right back in there. We killed 9 that day. Then we came back the second day of the hunt, and I started hunting a little further away, but we worked right back to that same area. We killed 11 coyotes by 11:55 a.m. Never, probably ever have I killed 11 coyotes before noon, but that time we did. We killed a triple and a double the first 2 stands of the morning. So the whole moral of the story is we could have maybe killed 2 coyotes and been skunked the rest of the day, maybe picked up 1 or 2, but instead we turned it into 9 and 11, hunting the whole same area because of that. I'm a guy that does not, I get totally anal about messing up one single coyote. I hate it. I hate spooking a coyote. I hate letting them know I'm there. I hate missing a coyote. And it's not that I got to kill the coyote. It's not always about the kill. It's the fact it's my own ability. I get upset if I miss that shot that I should have had. I get upset if that sucker made me and I didn't know he was there or he came in downwind. That's my own personal self wanting to be a perfectionist at what I do. So how much time now? Okay. 20 minutes. Can some of you relate with that? Hopefully. My favorite calling probably in the whole world, I told you the sandhills growing up, but my favorite was probably understanding and learning the desert coyotes, the red desert coyotes of Wyoming. And the reason being is the coyotes in the red desert, you can hit pockets where there's quite a few coyotes, and then you can have big expanses that it's almost like the coyotes can't even survive there because there's just nothing for them to eat. The rabbits, they come and go in cycles, so you've got to find the rabbits, and typically the elk, the antelope. The big thing is hunting antelope, and maybe some of you don't know that, but one of the things I learned moving to Wyoming, my old friend, and this is clear back in the day when I was 20 years old, I just asked him, I said, where would you go call coyotes? And he said, do not drive by a herd of antelope. Stop and call that herd. One of the herds of antelope I called 3 coyotes right through the herd. They're always going to be close to antelope. They're always messing with them. They're always pestering them, chasing them, trying to get them to run in a fence and hang themselves. Coyotes are a unique animal. One of the best sounds, in my opinion, that you can use for a coyote, hands down, would just be an antelope ball. Just a... You know, it sounds pretty crude, but I've watched it all happen and go down. It's amazing. A golden eagle on the back of an antelope, and that antelope buck is just bah, bah, and coyotes running as hard as they can. They know that sound, okay? They know the sound. So I'm a guy that likes to call a little bit deeper. I'm that guy that I don't typically go for the cottontail type sound. I do if I hit areas where the coyotes aren't responding very well. I switch it up and I go high pitch because something triggers inside of a coyote that sometimes you can flip that switch and you can get them to respond better with a really high pitch sound. But typically everywhere I go, I use a lower pitch sound, and you know I have so many people say, you know, they're from Iowa and they say, what call would you recommend? My Jack Deluxe. Now, it's just a name, okay, but it has lower pitches too as a call. People are like, instantly, we don't have jackrabbits here. Okay, let me give you a point here. Coyote isn't necessarily going to say, okay, that's a jackrabbit. He is coming because it's a distress. He can sense that it's a distress sound, something in distress. They're checking that out, but I feel anytime you're a little bit lower pitched, more like a deer or a antelope or a calf in the livestock sense, I think it can be better anyway. I think coyotes are triggered by that. But I went calling with a guy in Nebraska one time. He was always in south central Nebraska. The coyotes are pretty tough to call. Rode every square mile. Sometimes you've got a creek, a lot of farmland. The coyotes are constantly shot at, chased, harassed all the time. They can be a little tough to call. The way I kill them is with my hand, walking in as far as I can, getting close to where I think they're bedded down. But this one other guy was having a lot of luck. He's like, yeah, I called in a triple on the first set, a double the next set, and 2 more singles in 4 stands. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? No, no. And here I am thinking I know something about coyotes, and this guy's just a weekend warrior, if you will, and he's just calling them, calling. I'm like, maybe that's why it's so tough for me, because you're beating me to all the spots. But no, it ends up being his sound. Okay, this is where we're going to go back. I had stated that if you're making a sound, and because you think it sounds great to your ears, don't mean a coyote's going to like that sound. If it sounds crude, you're like, holy crap, that's Les Johnson blowing on that call. That sounds god-awful. That sounds pathetic. How the heck can he even call a coyote? That sound you might want to pay attention to. That's what this sound was for him. He used an open or a closed reed call, so the reed is inside the call. You can't really fluctuate it any. You're just blowing air through it. This is all this guy did. Okay? When I sat down with him on a stand, he blew it. I said, we are not going to see nothing. We're sitting in solid timber on a river, and I'll be damned if 10 minutes later, here come a coyote come trotting right in. Never even fired a shot. He wouldn't come all the way in. I'm like, we can kill that coyote. And he just kept working with him, and he just left. And I'm like, okay, well, no biggie. Here's what he sounded like. That's all he did, but it's a deer bleat. It's a long, drawn-out version of a deer bleat, fawn bleat, okay? We overthink things a lot on coyotes, and I've written articles in magazines to keep it simple. Sometimes we think we got to have the $300 pair of camo and this and that. Like I said, an old, worn-out pair of Carhartts is the best camo on the planet. Take that sound, even if you're a kid right now trying to learn. That sound called a lot of coyotes. That guy called in a lot of coyotes. So learn the hand call. It doesn't hurt to know a howl too. I'm not huge on being a howler. That's never been my style, but as I get older, I enjoy it, okay? I enjoy working with coyotes, going after that one that's tougher to kill. I enjoy that. But a lot of people, and I've said this earlier, a lot of people think that buying an $800 Fox Pro is going to solve all the problems. And I had this talk with other people that I feel like if it weren't for pump distress, my friend Calvin Taylor up in Gillette, he's the guy that came out with the pump distress on the Fox Pro. There's been literally probably hundreds of thousands of coyotes killed with that sound alone. And I feel like people are getting away from the roots of calling because now that's the go-to sound. Instead of distressed rabbit or antelope or cottontail, it's distressed coyote pup, okay? Try to get away from that and learn distressed rabbit. Learn how to blow that sound. I'm going to show you how. Just simple. You don't need to complicate it. Just a long, drawn-out howl. If there's a coyote around, sometimes they'll howl back instantly, or they'll wait 5 minutes. But it's just like a siren in a town. It's a long sound, and a lot of times coyotes can't take it. It's like that pressure builds up inside of them, and they got to release, you know. So, diaphragm. I like to start over here, go all the way. Now you can do other things with your howl. You know, the ki-yi, that's a very important sound to know. The ki-yi, I've killed a lot of coyotes with just that sound, mixing up with an antelope distress. Coyotes are opportunistic. And I've used this scenario a few times, and I want it to sink in, okay? I've told you I want the kids to understand this. I want you to understand what I'm saying here. If you went into a bar that had 2 rooms, and you're in there with your buddies, and in the other room there's some mean-looking fellers in there. A bunch of bikers coming back from Sturgis stopped in with their bikes, and they're in there and they are hooping and hollering, and you're in the other room of the bar going, that's getting a little wild over there. Stuff's going to start happening. You and your buddies, there's got to be 1 or 2 of you that are a little more, yeah, I don't mind fighting. I'm that kind of a guy. I'm aggressive. All of a sudden in that next room, you hear some loud voices, and you hear a glass shatter. Okay, now you're with your buddies, and 2 of them didn't even think about it. They run to that doorway to look inside, okay? They're peeking inside, where me, being the introvert, I don't need no trouble. I don't want no trouble. I back away. I'm like, I don't know. The cops are going to be called. I don't want to be in the middle of that. It sounds bad over there. Your buddies end up going in, then you start hearing all kinds of stuff breaking. Coyotes are the exact same way. There's coyotes that are aggressive as all get out. And that's why that coyote is so very good. Something as simple as a coyote. Coyotes react a little bit like people, and that's the way I want you to think about things. We all have individual personalities, every one of us. Some of us are go-getters, some of us are more laid back and, what the heck, I don't need to do that. Coyotes are the exact same way. When there's a good fight, a young 3-year-old male that's full of piss and vinegar, he wants to get right in the middle of that fight, That's the way it is. So keep that in mind. One stand while hunting a national years ago with my brother. We sat down on this stand. Coyotes started howling just like clockwork. We had just sat down to call it. We were on a big rim. Coyotes started howling. I'm like, it doesn't get any better than this, because I've got one coyote already a half mile from me and I haven't even started calling yet. So all I did, I started coyoting, because there was 2 or 3 different bunches of coyotes all the way down that rim. All I wanted to do is let those coyotes know there was a fight going on right in their neck of the woods, and they didn't even know they didn't even know there was coyotes there. So I started coyoting. That's all I did. And within 30 seconds, there was a bald knob over there, a great big old white coyote. He was standing on top of that knob. As soon as I got done coyoting, he was a king dog. He was like, what the heck is going on? Never made another sound. All I did was coyote, called him in, killed him, shotgunned him. Next one, I kept coyoting, called another one in, killed him, called another one in, killed him. 3 adult males, killed all 3 of them. And it was wide open out in front of us. The gunshots are going right that way, and still called a coyote right from the wide open, right where the gunshots were coming from. They were all over 30 pounds, big males. So the moral of the story is, like I said, we complicate things. We love to put a lot of thought into things, and sometimes we need to back out and say, let's just keep it simple. Let's keep it simple like that sound right there. Just that. Simple. I'll go through a few of my sounds real quick. Got 5 minutes left, and then if you have any questions, please come inside and we'll let the next person hear. I'm just going to go through them real fast. If you need demonstrations, I'll go outside with you and show you how to make the sounds. Open reed call. The reed is on the outside, just like a saxophone, a clarinet. You can make all kinds of sounds with this call. You can make an elk, cow elk mew. I've called in a lot of bull elk with that sound, tons of them. When you learn how to use an open reed call, you can make all kinds of sounds.
widen your lips in, you can get deeper, you pull them out, you get higher pitch. Coyote in distress. That's more like a pup because it's so high pitched. Some of my calls, higher pitched, great for pups. This time of year, the coyotes can relate to it. Like I said, the sound I use, more like a jackrabbit distress. In the wintertime, when you're hunting around antelope, best sound in the world. Think about what they need to hear to get them in. Think about it. It doesn't sound the best to our ears, but we're not trying to impress ourselves. A couple of the kids here, I want to give a few things. You need one of these, don't you?
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think I'm going to call that good. You guys split that? You guys come in and I'll give you guys one, okay? Thank you, everyone.